thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about what housing discrimination looks like here in our backyard. Or when you were looking on Zillow, were there any certain features or size of housing that you were looking for?
Yes, we wanted, number one, we wanted a four-bedroom unit with at least one bathroom, but hopefully multiple bathrooms. We wanted a yard, so that the kids could go and play in the backyard. And I did mention this first, I'm putting it third in this order, but we wanted a neighborhood, a certain neighborhood where the kids could feel safe and go outside and play in the neighborhood, where there was a park, a park nearby, a nice
Mhm.
park nearby where they could actually be in the park and not have any type of negative environment, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
at the time,
And so
you know,
having that Section 8 voucher, should have allowed you to have a greater opportunity to find another neighborhood, like you mentioned, that, had access to safe parks and a yard, et cetera, right?
well, that's what we thought at first. This experience has really been new because there was a great assumption that, okay, now we have an updated voucher. We're going to be able to go to different places. We're going to be able to look in different areas, different neighborhoods, and we're going to be able to expand and broaden, you know, um, our horizons, so to speak. I don't know if that's a good word to use, but we really thought that, hey, this is going to be the time where we could have better than what we have today. You know, when I applied to the place, again, we applied online, and it wasn't necessarily sight unseen. Um, I applied, and when I apply, I go through a really stringent, kind of like researching on the property. I
Mhm.
saw the place, and just before I applied, I go to the map on my phone and I look at the aerial view
Mhm.
with the satellite image. It gives me exactly what the home looks like. I'm able to move the camera around to see the neighboring
Mhm.
environment. I could see how clean it is, or how clean it was at the time the image was taken.
Mhm.
Um, and I can see kind of this 360-degree dome around the property, and it looked really, really nice. And I thought it was a really great, area to go in and to move into. So I took a screenshot of it. I showed my wife, and then I applied. When I applied along with my wife as a co-applicant and my teenage daughter because she had turned 18 uh, just prior to graduating high school. So
Mhm.
her application is one we put in as well as a co-applicant. So when the three of us applied and put our application in, we got a response from the rental agency. My wife, in turn, answered that response and began communication with the representative there. And when we began, yes, ma'am, go ahead.
So how far along did you get, before you were denied in the application process?
Just about 2 weeks, maybe a day or so over 2 weeks, but just about 2 weeks. I'm gonna add a caveat here. Each time we applied at this particular time, I would add my copy of my driver and digital image of my driver's license backwards and
Mm.
forwards in the application, and this was through Appfolio. So you at the time you could put in your driver's license. I think you still can,
Mhm.
but I put in my driver's license. So I always assumed that you know you know who the person is that you're speaking to prior to speaking to them when you pull the application, because it's one of the first things you have to do is identify yourself. So after this 2 week period, and then she wanted to speak with me, I'm like, okay, all right. So I planned for a time to talk to them, and I'm. It was almost immediate when I began. It was almost like, oh, wait a minute, who am I talking to? And then there was some shuffling of paperwork and things like that. Immediately there was a problem, and
Mm.
you know what the problem was. They wanted me to verify additional income, which never came up in the 2 weeks prior to speaking with my wife. The whole time speaking with my wife, there was never a question of additional income, and I actually questioned it. It's been 2 weeks now. Why didn't this come up 2 weeks ago?
What was
You
the
know, and
response?
there was no response for that question. There was just kind of a deviation and a moving forward. You would need this. And immediately, this is when I started to look up the fair housing laws. I found the actual fair housing law on the government website for fair housing. And I literally wrote down the law, the specific law that gave me these rights. And I wrote them in my email overnight. And I sent it to the lady again. And I said, were you aware of these things? And in response to that
And
email,
so just so our listeners are clear, so at this time she's, the representative from the housing is acting like everything is going to proceed for about 2 weeks with your wife. And then
yes,
all of a sudden, when you get involved in the picture, there is some resistance. They're putting in additional barriers. They're saying, well, now you need to have X amount of income. Can you tell me a little bit about what that requirement was that all of a sudden you had to meet?
they wanted me to have in the email, they specifically stated an amount of $80,000 additional income.
They wanted
And
a Section 8 recipient to make $80,000 in order to live
no,
there.
no. They wanted me to have 80,000 more dollars than I had already represented. You know, on top of what we had on Section 8, on top of what I had in disability payments at the time. And they wanted me to have this additional income on top of what we had already given them. And that was kind of a red flag for me because, and I said, didn't you speak about this with my wife 2 weeks ago? Why wasn't this brought up that we needed 80,000 more dollars? You know, and then that's when there was, oh, let me call you on the phone and let me explain this on the phone to you.
And so what were you thinking or feeling as this was all happening?
My feelings were hurt.
Hmm.
I was looking forward to moving into the property. You have to understand, once the process began with my wife, so many good feelings were taking place. You
Hmm.
know, I think this is going to move forward. We can now have a new place. You know, we had this dream of, you know, living in a better situation than we had before. You know, I try not to put my, you know, kind of, there's a phrase, don't get your hopes up.
Hmm.
I got my hopes up, let me tell you, for 2 weeks. And I'm a veteran, so I typically don't look for help.
Hmm.
As a veteran, I'm trained to be the help for
Hmm.
others, you know, or be the help that I need for myself and not ask for help. So this was the situation where I really have no information. I have little knowledge on dealing with housing or finding a house or things like that. For a veteran, you know, much of what we do is established for us so we can go ahead
Hmm.
and do our jobs. You know, even though I've been out of the military for some time now, that's still kind of like the standard goings, you know.
Hmm.
So when when I have to look for help, it's kind of like a dampening of my own self. So
Hmm.
when and this is my feelings when
Hmm.
I don't put my feelings out there. So when I have to go and get help, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I'm extremely humble. Not, and it's not saying that I'm not humble before. It's just saying that I'm in a humbling situation, you know. And
Yeah.
now when I'm so appreciative, you know, of now, hey, we got somebody who's willing to accept us in a home. Everything looks good. All these dreams and the things that we want and desire, they're gonna come. They're gonna take place, you know, really, really soon, you know. And after the first week of going through everything and meeting all their demands and requirements, you know, after the first week, it's okay, all right, those challenges have been met. After the second week, it's even more. It's like, okay, everything's coming together now. Those challenges have been met. And now we're approaching the beginning of the third week, and it's okay. You want to talk to me? Great, because
Mhm.
I'm gonna be so happy. I was so happy. But then all of that came to kind of like this pitfall when this was presented to us of trying to have 80,000 more dollars in income. And then as I continued to speak, I saw, I didn't see, but I perceived that there was another underlying issue other than the income because I inquired about the fair housing laws in the conversation, even though I was ignorant of the laws at the time. And the lady spoke and she said, no, we have other Section 8 Section 8 tenants that we deal with, and they all are required to have additional income, and they do have additional income. And I'm saying, well, that's odd
They
because in
wouldn't
order to be
qualify.
right, in order to be on housing, you would kind of, unless you had this huge family, you would
Yeah.
oust yourself out of the process, or you would be paying the maximum amount of rent to the landlord. Like it kind of like defeats the purpose of having a voucher if you're already affluent to that degree. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mhm.
And I was like, oh, I don't know about that. I didn't feel comfortable with the answer for it. And then again, I mentioned the laws. I said, there's a law. I know there's a law, that the governor has passed for disabled persons, for Section 8 applicants, for the Section 8 money to be considered as income. And she said, well, yeah, we're doing that. We're considering that as income, but you need more income. And I was like, okay, um, all right. And I didn't really know how to ingest the information, but I did my due diligence. And that's where you come involved in. Because once I did my due diligence and actually went to read the law, and actually the wording of the law, which was important.
Was maybe misunderstanding it or was misapplying it towards you to dissuade you from continuing to apply there, correct?
Well, I understood that to be the case, but she was completely um, self-assured
Mhm.
that she was doing the right thing. And I said, "Are you sure? Have you heard of this law?" The first question was, "Have you heard of these new laws?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm aware of that. I know what it is." And I said, "Well, I'm not quite sure that you're taking account of what the law actually is. I'm going to go read it again myself to actually get an understanding of it because I'm mentioning it, but I haven't actually read it." I said, "And I'll get back to you." And then that's what I actually added those things in my email. And it was a pretty extensive email. One of the longest ones, probably the longest one I ever wrote, because you had to include all of the statutes and the codes and
Mhm.
everything. And it was almost like me writing a legal deposition, which I have no knowledge of what a legal deposition of, but it just felt so legal. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, but but yeah, there was just this huge drawback into the process was just, and it seemed like the gap got wider and wider and wider. It was just overwhelming, because we were so happy. We were telling people about, hey, we're going to move here. We finally found a place. I'm telling my mom, she's in her late 70s. She worries about me all the time. I'm 40 years old and that's, my mom still worries about me. You know what I mean? So I'm saying, we have a place, we're fine. My kids, they're telling their friends, okay, I'm going to be moving in this new area. This is where it is. And, like we were really excited. We were really excited, all of us as a family. I mean, there was so much in this 2 week period. There was so much joy. It was like a joy balloon until it
Mhm.
got popped. Honestly, until it got popped. And then everybody's sad. We're all tense and we're all, you know, it's almost like you have something in your throat that
Yeah.
you can't swallow, and you feel like a wrong has been done to you, my younger kids. So we were happy. A minute ago, everybody was excited, a moment ago. So what's wrong now? And you can't tell somebody, okay, we're gonna have to keep looking. What do you mean we're going to have to keep looking? We're excited. I told my friends about it. I was mentioning where we're going to be living now and, what the house was looking like because we had pictures. You know what I mean? Some
Yeah.
of my kids had saved some pictures. Yes, go ahead.
After, I mean, as this is happening, did you hesitate to continue to look for housing, or did your approach change after this happened?
My approach changed. However, I didn't hesitate to continue looking. We immediately began putting in additional applications to other places. The situation with COVID and the fact that not everyone is allowing you to tour the property.
Mm-hmm.
Some rental agencies, some landlords, some property owners have virtual tours where you can tour online, and they basically go around with a camera system, a video system, and you see this video of the home or and something of that nature. Or you have
Yeah.
a tour by appointment, and you have to get an appointment, and the time you apply might not be the time it might not be within that time frame of you applying that you actually get to go and see the home. Sometimes you have to see the home first before applying, and that has a problem of its own because other applicants get in before you who have seen the home before you.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's
again, we're
competitive.
it's completely competitive.
Yeah.
You know, where we've competitively tried to be the first applicant. And when I say the first applicant, I mean I sleep with my Zillow app open, you know. So when a new
Mm-hmm.
house comes up, it says days on Zillow 0. The owner hasn't even completely put in all of the information on the site, and I've already applied to it. My wife has already applied to it
Yeah.
before their information is even there. So a lot of it is a sweeping away because Zillow particularly tells you when your application has been opened,
Mm.
okay? And it tells you which application has been opened. So I see sometimes when they'll open my application, but they won't open my wife's application or they won't open my daughter's application. Well,
Hmm.
then how can you determine what income level my wife has or what
Yeah.
credit my wife has if you don't open her application to see it? You open mine to see what's in mine. I let you know that I have a voucher. You moved on,
Yeah.
okay? Or you got it. You opened it. You opened my wife's. You got to my daughter's, and then you moved on. No phone call. And the criteria for applying is very stringent. You have to have 700 or above credit. You have to have 650 or above credit. That's just to start. So we have good credit. So that's taken place. And then it's you have to have this level of income. Okay. Housing vouchers should be able to take care of that, 3 times what the rental portion is. You're assuming that everyone knows that. And then you get no call. And when I don't get a phone call and I know that no one else could have applied because Zillow shows me how many people have viewed this ad.
Yeah.
Zillow literally tells you, mm, 3 people have viewed this ad. I mean, 3 people have viewed this ad, and or one person has viewed this ad, and I'm like, okay, the ad just got up. I'm the one person. You know what I mean?
No,
So
I hear you. I think from what I understand is you're saying what happened to you earlier, with your interactions with that property manager, it was only one time where they decided to let you know the exact reason they were turning you
yes,
away, that had to do with
yes,
your voucher, versus all these other times where, you're pretty sure that's the reason because based off your experience, you're the very first person who's applying. You can tell
yes,
that something about your application, most likely the fact that you listed a Section 8 voucher, caused the person opening up the application to just move on and not even look at the rest of it.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to let us hear exactly what that looks like. you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Thank you for sharing your story about what housing discrimination looks like here in our own backyard in San Diego. Let me start off by asking how long did you live in San Diego?
I lived in San Diego approximately 5 years before I moved.
And when we're talking about the discrimination that you face, before we get into that, are you the person who usually takes responsibility for looking for housing in your family?
Yes, I am.
All right. And tell me a little bit about how you found the housing that we're going to talk about today.
Yes, I found that housing. I was searching multiple websites, but I found that particular housing on Craigslist, and it was an ad on there that was in my price range. And I inquired about the ad, and we just went from there.
And what were you looking for when you were looking for housing? You mentioned a certain price range. Was there anything else that you were looking for?
Yeah, I was actually looking for a place that was also a safe neighborhood, preferably kid friendly, since I was pregnant at the time with my son,
Mm-hmm.
and that was about it that I was always looking for. And somewhere else that was close to my church, which that was like literally down the street from my church.
Okay. And what so that's one of the things that you really liked about that unit, right? That it was close to your church. Was there anything else that attracted you to that housing?
Yeah, it was in a house, and also it was a separate entrance from the main house, which was on the outside of the house where I had my own space. So that really, really attracted. I had my own bathroom and everything.
And so in your situation, unlike others that we're going to hear about later on today, you actually got the opportunity to move into this place, right? You were accepted. Um,
Yes, I was.
and so tell me about the plans that you had once you were living there. Did you feel comfortable? Did you feel like, you'd finally found a safe home?
I totally felt comfortable. I totally felt safe. My plans were to work and go to school while I had my own space, my own room, and everything. But of course, those plans got disrupted, and I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do. So I had to go back and stay with my family again.
So tell me a little bit about how those plans were disrupted.
The plans were disruptive because I moved in approximately September 10th, and 9 days later, she told me, "Hey, you need to get out of my house."
So one more time, you broke up a little bit. So you moved in September.
And because it was just, sorry. Yeah, I was here pregnant with my son, and all of a sudden you tell me, "Oh, there's rules that you didn't have when I first moved in."
So do you think that she didn't realize that you were pregnant when you first moved in?
Absolutely not. She definitely realized I was pregnant. I was big as a house. Who couldn't know that I was pregnant? Even the place that I moved into after the lady knew I was pregnant. She was like, "Are you pregnant? You're so big." So she knew. She was just trying to appease the other girls that were in the house.
I see. And so you received an eviction notice because you were pregnant.
Yes, because she said that she do not allow four things: kids, boys, drugs, and overnight guests or something like that.
And so how did you process that? What were you thinking?
Honestly, I was hurt. I was I had a lot of anxiety. I had a lot of depression because, my family had gave me a certain time limit to be out the house. And here I am now, back in a situation where I had to go right back to the same thing that I was in before, which I kind of, I
Yeah,
didn't want to go back to my parents' house because what was the point of going back there? There was
yeah.
nothing there. There was nothing there for me. They already had told me that I had a certain amount of time to be out.
And how far along were you when
And
when you were
then
asked to leave?
I was 8 and eight.
Wow. So eight and a half months pregnant?
Yes, I had my son the following month.
Oh my goodness. And so tell me what happened after you got this notice? Did you realize that what was happening was illegal?
At first, I did not know it was illegal until a friend brought it to my attention and was like, that you can't do that. That's illegal. You need to contact legal aid. And also, I had a doctor's appointment. Thank God. I had an appointment to go check on my baby. And the
Hmm.
counselor there actually was the one who got the process started to call legal aid. And they called me back and they said that I had a case. And then we went from there.
Mm. So tell me, after this happened, did you hesitate to continue to look for housing because of what you experienced, or how did your outlook change?
My outlook changed. I started looking for kid friendly housing. I started making sure that all of the housing that I was inquiring about, they accepted kids, because the places I was looking, like Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, some of them, and still today, as I look back for rooms, just in case I want to move back to San Diego, still has no kids on there, which is, not okay.
Yeah.
Because if I go, then my baby has to come with me. So it's still hard. It's nothing has really changed since I was put out, but it's okay.
Yeah. So you're still facing some of those same types of mindsets out there.
Yes, I am. But now that I'm in another state, the state that I'm in now, they don't really have as much out here, but out in San Diego, because I'm planning on coming back like maybe in like a month or two.
Hmm.
And I'm looking for housing again. And I keep seeing ads, no kids, no kids, no kids. So it's
Mm.
really hard. And then, you
Yeah.
have to make a certain amount of money just to get into an apartment. So that's really hard too.
Yeah, I think that what you mentioned is really helpful because I think a lot of people who are listening to this are thinking there's no way that this still happens. There's no way that people are still discriminated against. But, in some of the stories that we're hearing today, we hear that not only did it happen once, but that, even when you're still looking for housing, that you're still encountering some of these issues.
Yeah, like like they keep saying no kids. And I was like, okay, all of these are no kids. And some of them, when they post the ad, they don't have no kids in the ad. You go there and be like, hey, I have a child. I'm like, oh, it's only for one person. Yeah, but most people have kids.
Hmm. Hmm. But
So
if I'm hearing you correctly, as part of what's changed is that now you just directly ask the question. You try to make sure that it's not going to be an issue before you move into somewhere else.
correct. I pressure the issue. Are you sure? I asked them multiple times. I'm like, are you sure kids are okay? They'd be like, yeah, you can have kids. And some of them, they'd be like, no, we don't want any kids. We don't have kids, or I already have kids. I don't need any more. Stuff like that, which is very heartbreaking to me. Very, like, it makes me feel very depressed, because like, I have a baby and if he can't go with me, then where are
Yeah,
we gonna go?
yeah, yeah. Looking back at what's happened, has your perspective of what you went through has that changed, or are you still feeling hurt and upset?
Definitely, I'm still kind of like bummed about it. I mean, it's gotten better, but I'm still bummed. I eventually thank God I had got my own place, but that was no better. I'm eventually bummed. Like, it was really hurt. It was depressing. I had a lot of anxiety because I just felt really discriminated against. How are you going to tell me that I can't be pregnant and rent a room?
Yeah. Well, especially it sounded like you were there for less than 10 days before you were asked to leave again.
Yeah, I was only there literally 10 days. I moved in September 10th. September 19th, she was like, you need to get out of my house. I give you a 30-day notice. So I called my family. I left the next day and I was like, you need to give me all of my money back too.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story. Is there anything else that you think you'd want folks to understand, or to realize that this is still going on?
Yeah, I just want them to never give up and just continue to search for places that are kid friendly. And if you find anything and they happen to tell you, yo, you can't stay here because you have a kid, then come and get some assistance with that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you